Inc., a prominent Montreal-based engineering and construction firm that has been accused of bribing Libyan officials to get contracts between 2001 and 2011. Take a listen.
For 2 months, the Prime Minister has been avoiding accountability in his involvement in the SNC-Lavalin corruption scandal, which has been engulfing his government now.
Secretaries who, or ministers who are actually embroiled in corruption is concerned. But let's buckle down with the discussion here, looking at a raft of issues from the international point of view. Of course, you're watching Standing on Guard, where we keep an eye on the enemy and also take a look at what is happening as far as the global affairs are concerned. And I'd indicated to you, or told you earlier before we took a short break, that we'll circle back with what is on the front page of East African, where this is all about the South Sudan's, of course, story and the seeking of peace in South Sudan that seems to be a holy grail for them. Right now, they're seeking prayers, right? And both of them, they'll be going to see the Pope way in Rome. Rival off to Vatican on a healing mission. Riek Machar is returning to Juba. Then he and Salva Kiir will go see the Pope. Our panelist this morning, Let's hear from who wants actually to take this. Dr. Mustafa.
Yeah, Dibal, thanks. First of all, yeah, Dibal, I have been, in my previous posting, I was blessed to have organized with my colleagues a religious peacemaking processes. Three key ones were between the Israelis and Palestinians, where we had to get the grand Imam, the Grand Mufti of Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the Chief Rabbi of Jerusalem and their entire entourage out of Jerusalem to Alexandria in Egypt. And the other one was in Jos and Kaduna in Nigeria, where the tension between Muslims and Christians in 2012 was so high that we had to really bring religious leaders from outside of Nigeria to go and help the Christians and Muslims there. And then the third one was in Libya, where I was involved in engaging with the various religious actors there, the ones that are actually fighting today. Now, religion has very clear resources in terms of peace building. And one that is key is to, for the case of South Sudan, is to rehumanize the otherwise dehumanizing conditions that have been there for a very long time. 400,000 people have actually been killed in this current round of fighting. Salva Kiir, who is a Catholic, and Riek Machar, who is an Anglican, have actually failed politically to deal with the issues there. And what remains are some of the religious process that they might have. And perhaps this is why Pope Francis and Justin Welby, who's the head of the Anglican Communion, is actually calling them to go to the Vatican. And it is a process, Dibal, from the Vatican. Those two will come back with their teams, and Pope Francis and Justin Welby will come to South Sudan to continue with the process of peacemaking. Now, if these two are not going to, in the retreat, are not going to mellow and are not going to focus on the religious values that respect the dignity of life, then I do not know what else would actually help these people in South Sudan to actually deal with the issues there. And I hope that this time what Pope Francis and Justin Welby initiating is going to work. It's worked before in South Sudan when the World Council of Churches actually engaged in 1972 with the All African Conference of Churches that led to the end of the Anyanya I and Anyanya II insurrections, and have a long time, quite a protracted peace period. I hope that this time is also going to work, Dibal. And if it doesn't work, then these two leaders, as we've said before, really have to come and say they are not able to do it. They should leave it to other people. And
seeking the intervention of God, that should be the apex. Yeah. You know, but we actually put it as the last resort. So if actually they head there and then there is nothing that will really happen, then what next?
Well, yeah, but personally, I think it depends on the commitment. I respect and I know the power of prayers and God, but I'm just thinking that, look at the context, like here in Kenya, we've also had prayers before, isn't it? In South Sudan, there are religious leaders in South Sudan who've taken positions, tried to advise the government about doing certain things. So I'm just looking at the problems in South Sudan, which are structural. You have a lot of poverty, you have skewed distribution of resources, you have a lot of guns out there, you have different groups that are fighting each other, and you have leaders who travel in one direction themselves. It's all about power, it's all about getting as much money from state resources as possible. So my thinking around this issue is that I acknowledge that religion has power, but I'm looking at this context where these two actors actually have to go for an election in a few years' time. They have historical rivalry. So I'm just thinking that this possibly is a conflict management process that's just a lull before the storm. When it comes to elections, you're going to have the peace agreement possibly unraveling. So I'm just saying that much depends on these two individuals in terms of how they seek to engage, how meaningful, how they, in terms of the engagement with even the Pope, their own personal commitment. And I'm just saying that going by the history, have a bit of reservations about whether this is going to bring fundamental changes when you go back in terms of what the religious actors have attempted in South Sudan. So I'm saying in a nutshell that I have some reservations, but I'm not disputing the fact that religion has certain resources that it can provide in terms of peace building.
All right, Asan Konenje.
I think prayers are great, and seeking divine intervention is always good, but they're not sufficient. What we're going to need in South Sudan is an institutional framework that is going to avoid the contradictions that led to the outbreak of these conflicts in the first place. Number two, we're going to need strong third-party guarantors to this peace agreement with sufficient carrots and sticks to bring to bear in case of any violation. In the absence of that, I don't think it's going to be enough to actually make the peace stick.
Right.
Yeah, Dibal, building peace is about commitment, communication, and building assurance that whatever we have said, we will do. So it's enforcing commitment, and for me, in diplomacy, this is a what you would call a track two, an informal process where you have leaders seeking other good officers where they can sit down and have build commitment, build trust and so on, to make sure they follow up to things they have committed to. It's a good thing. It should be encouraged, and we trust, we hope that they will be able to even come out more clearly that they have really resolved, and because all you need is to have more convincing latitude around more people, so that when they go back, they are not the only people the only contenders in the whole thing in South Sudan. There are other splinter groups, so they have a heavy load to come together, heavy task to bring all these groups together, commit to the set out institutional plan and plan of action in terms of elections and thereafter, agree on fundamental issues and how they will go about it, and bring the people on board so that it's not just a two-man show, and they will be able to have the country back on its feet. South Sudan is facing problems of state formation, and there are a lot of issues of disharmony between the historical and political attributes of statehood on one hand, and the cultural and territorial attributes of nationhood on the other. So you find that there is that mismatch, but they have to harmonize it, and this is a good channel for starters, and we should encourage them in that direction. Well done for them.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we've exhausted that. We agree
just
that
a footnote, Dibal. These two guys, and I agree with my colleagues, religion and in itself will not be able to actually bring peace in South Sudan. They have to be backed up by state structures. The demobilization, demilitarization of the militias and all that will have to be, the church cannot do that. These two guys are actually not going to pray at the Vatican. They are not going to pray. They are going to have serious discussions. And in Mozambique here, there's a group called Sant Egidio. That is the group that is responsible for actually ending the conflict in Mozambique. And it is based at the Vatican. And it is that particular group that these two are going to actually be meeting, and the Pope will be there to supervise and bless the discussions.
Fantastic. Nomi Damba.
Dubal, the ground, I agree with my colleagues here, but the ground in South Sudan is a complex socio-political and economic nightmare. The issue here is, yes, they can pray, and there's nothing wrong with praying, and there is nothing wrong with Pope, getting these two people together. But there is infiltration of small arms coming from everywhere. Their economic interest of everybody from all the surrounding countries around South Sudan, and then the warlords, are all over. They're proposing incredible, complex administration which consists of the largest number of vice presidents, never been seen in the continent of Africa. How it's going to work to harmonize the warlords together, let's be realistic. There's so much the structure can do, but the communities need to be talking to each other. And therefore, the BAL is going to take multilateral approach. UN cannot be out here. AU cannot be out. African countries must join together, EU, wherever, and then the religious group, Anglican, Catholic, Muslim, everybody join together in order to harmonize the situation. But prayer alone in itself cannot do the job.
Prayer alone cannot do the job. We are not underestimating the power of prayer. Because I believe in prayer.
You know,
I'm a realist.
You're a realist.
I'm a realist.
There was is a known Catholic philosopher called St. Augustine, and he wrote a book about the city of God. And there is a city of man before the city of God. And so the state is a necessary evil. So you have to live practically in this world before you can actually advance your intentions to go to heaven. And so if we just say we're going to live in the city of God alone, and we forget we're actually currently living in the city of man, I think we can never make progress, whether on peace or economics or in politics.
Right, but we're not saying also that you ditch your sanity if you're living in the city of God, right? That you can actually have a camel, and they say also you can tie your camel, right? How do they say? Tie your camel
and have trust in God.
Yeah, tie your camel and have trust in God.
Correct.
So tie your camel. This is what they're trying, but they're having a trust in God as well.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Pope Francis is not one of these pastors who's busy conning people around in Nairobi and around Kenya.
I think
It's
Diva,
different
this is the right-
level there.
I think we do not have the time to discuss what ails South Sudan.
Yeah.
If you went into that, that is when you realize the place that religion can actually play. Because I've been in South Sudan severally,
Yes.
so I know the situation. It's a lack of political direction.
Absolutely.
You have fundamental problems in that country, where you have a president who has surrounded himself with people from his own ethnic group. So you have reservations from other areas who think it is the Dinkas who are benefiting politically. There's a lack of, most actors in the health sector in South Sudan are NGOs. The government's presence outside Juba is non-existent. That is where you have groups coming up. You start a group, a military group, then the government calls you to negotiate. They bring you into government, give you a higher position with higher pay. So you have these issues that are structural, where there's a lot of theft of public resources. People are not feeling the government. So if you have these issues, there's a role in which prayer can play. But how will this translate to changing the fundamentals at the local level? So you have those issues, and that is why my argument has always been that where you have the two actors who are actually part of the problem, you cannot resolve the problem that I've created. My key argument is that you need someone else, sort of Kagame, who knows where to take South Sudan. But otherwise, if you engage, everything in South Sudan is critical. It needs immediate attention, but the current leadership, I doubt if they're able to actually provide that. So I'm just saying that you have the prayer, but how will this prayer translate to transforming all these fundamentals? That is a question
And we see the alternative voices also, they're being muffled in South Sudan as well.
Absolutely.
We know Peter Biara-Jack is still in the slummers. It's a good thing that now he appeared in court after almost 1 good year. And that also is a development that maybe we want to bring to attention of our viewers, that he's one of our panelists that also has been in the courts because of course, talking about the generational exit, you know, that these old coups that we do have in South Sudan, Riek Machar and Salva Kiir, should actually exit, and we see new, you know, blood coming into onto the fore to try and take leadership in South Sudan. And they have been rallying young people in South Sudan, and I think this also, the government did take it kindly, and so they took special umbrage with this, and actually threw these people into the slumbers. So we'll give you these details, I think, next week on what is happening as far as, of course, as far as Peter Bia's arrest is concerned in South Sudan. But we want to now cross over to Sudan, right, where we know that this was one country, they seceded, and now we had South Sudan. But still in Sudan, there is this particular picture that has been drawn by Munene today. Bashir is in the grinding mill, and you can see him there. The sprockets actually are pinching him right now. Where it is, as we've seen with Algeria, have we crossed the Rubicon as far as Sudan is concerned? Because there's no going back, it seems, right? Since December the 19th, people that have been out on the streets right now, and they're protesting, of course, the high skyrocketing cost of living in South Sudan, a nation that is bestowed with a huge expanse of oil deposits, but still to wananchi, so to speak, in Sudan, that is not reflecting in their pockets. Who will flower this?
Okay.
Dr. Kisangani?
Yeah, I think I don't see any getting back on this. How the situation has unraveled since December. Now, the problems for Sudan are several. They're economic, and it also has to do with political. If you see how al-Bashir has ruled Sudan, he's focused so much on state security. If you look at the east, there is the Darfur. You look at south, there is the South Kordofan and Blue Nile, areas that feel they have been marginalized. In the east, you have a place called Beja. All of them have been having uprisings against the government. And the government has invested a lot in the military to promote state security. So you have these problems that can also be traced with the secession of South Sudan, where the Sudan depended so much on resources, especially oil proceeds. So with these, you have economic problems that are facing Bashir. Mm-hmm. And this sustained, yesterday I heard that he's calling for dialogue. But I don't see the extent to which these actors, having traveled that course, at this point will say, let's agree on dialogue. He's tried all mechanisms to change leadership at various levels, but it's not working. So the only direction I think it looks like at some point is going to have to agree to step down. But my key concern is the place of international actors. I've been quite silent on this, partly because I think of the permutations. You have had the Libya, where you intervene, but you don't know the consequence. A case of a solution that comes with new problems. So I think they do not know exactly what possibly may happen afterwards. So they're grappling with that. So I think, to me, that is a key concern, that even when you have these demonstrations, there should be a bit of thinking and organization around what will happen afterwards when this guy gets, because it may just bring out more problems.
Kicks over dying horse. We saw also Bouteflika saying, oh yeah, just give me one sporting chance, I will lead the nation, then I will resign completely. But that didn't actually come to fruition, right? This is what also maybe Bashir is seeking. Yeah, just let's have a dialogue. But it seems, yes, that candle has already been blown. Haninja.
Dibal, in politics, as it is in life, the only thing that is permanent is change. And if you do not change, the change will change you. The secession of South Sudan, the declining relevance of the war in the east and the west has reduced enemies of Sudan. And without enmity to unite the center, a lot of times the pressure is going to come back home. Now, today, increasingly, of course, Sudan has been going through a tough economic time. And there is no identifiable enemy to be able to play the fear politics, because the fear politics tends to unite the center. Now, the center without that is not going to hold, especially when they do not have a bread and butter on the table. And I think for the president of Sudan, the writing is on the wall. And it's going to be helpful for him to put in place some mechanisms of transition. And partly because we've seen what happened in Libya, we've seen what happened in other places such as Iraq. It's going to be foolhardy for us to think that the departure of President Bashir is going to actually make Sudan a very democratic and peaceful place. With the current economic circumstances, and competing claims and groups, because right now groups that had united to actually fight the war in the south or fight even against the Darfurians, right now they are not exactly as united as they were, and they're pursuing competing interests. And so without a system to manage the transition, chances are Sudan may even descend into a civil war, and therefore it's incumbent upon the international community and the African Union to find a peaceful way of actually assisting the president transit out of power. Now, it is true that Western countries have not been as active in Sudan as they were perhaps in other countries. It's possibly because there isn't really much oil in Sudan or gold or anything like that, because I think you'll see a lot more interest. Just what is happening in Tripoli, you can see the big powers are already taking certain positions, either voting against resolutions or proposing certain resolutions, in part because they actually have interests. But when you do not have resources and you seem to be on decline, you're relatively poorer than perhaps they were before, because previously with South Sudan, there was also oil to bargain with. But I think the entire process needs to be managed, and we cannot just sit, even as neighbors. We need to find a way as a country, as Kenya, to see how best can we be able to help South Sudan, because if South Sudan, if Sudan crumples, just as South Sudan did, we know one of the biggest losers, especially in this region, is Kenya, in part because of the amount of business and integration, and just generally the affinity we have with the people in the region.
So what happens with the warrant of arrest that, yes, is indeed wanted by ICC because of committing crimes against humanity? Now that he's the president, if he's, what will happen to the warrant of arrest? Now they will actually go gung-ho on him?
Now that is the elephant in the room, and the prospect, for instance, of prosecution makes generally leaders less likely to actually make compromises or even leave power. And if there is a mechanism in which perhaps even through the AU can be able to provide safe landing at some point, probably many people and human rights activists will not like what I'm saying, but you know, in politics you have to be practical. I think perhaps it may increase the likelihood if we know it's not going to be handed over to the ICC.
Okay. Professor Muthoni Drummer.
Dibal, President al-Bashir, from the beginning to now, has been aided by the military. He's a man with a clueless, visionless, and at this point there's nothing left for him that one can claim to be value added to the country. The time for him is to exit, put a team together to manage the country and exit. That is the best that he can do for the country. Or all forces, right now when you look at it, the country is going to go the Algerian way. It's going to be pushed out. Now the people who push him out most likely will hand him over to IC.
All right. Okay. Finally, let's hear from Dr. Mumo.
Yeah, Dibal, we need to be careful so that the audience is not confused about what we are saying. You know, Sudan, Khartoum, you know, Sudan, as it were, this Sudan is an authoritarian political system. It has never been a democracy in the strict sense of the word in any way. So they have had elections, but you know, they are what you would call, you know, be an electoral democracy, but not anywhere being a transitional democracy in the real sense. So what happens in some of these systems, how you handle a regime change is very important. We do not want to have a situation where a civil war will break out in the Sudan. That would be bad for the region. We don't want another Libya here, and we do not want the bad things that have been happening up north to happen in Sudan. It's a very friendly country to us, to Kenya, and is a country we have been trading with. So, you know, sadly, Dr. John Garang would have been president of the entire Sudan, actually. That would have been a better deal. You can see division sometimes leads to losses. You can see South Sudan is having problems of state formation. Sudan, Khartoum itself now, the oil, most of the oil was in the south, but they had the infrastructure. The infrastructure cannot help because the actual, you know, oil banks are in the south. So you can see a country now that is suffering from, because it was the monies and the wealth that was coming from the sales of the oil that was supporting most of the the system in the north. Now, there's something we call regime enchant and the new regime. If the stakes are too high, and that what Professor Midamba said, if we can have a good mechanism through the African Union or even the Arab League and other countries to come in and say, you know what, we need a safe passage for this man. Because if you don't do that, all this pressure will go to other people and people will hurt. There's one thing I've observed about the people of Khartoum. They're so peaceful. They did not throw stones. There was no bloodshed. They have, in contentious politics, this is one of the best ways of conducting what we call, even if you call it mass action. No violence at all, just with plates and all this, and very nice way of doing things. Almost what you would compare with what you're saying with Canada. Mm-hmm. There is not a crisis in Canada because the MPs want the Prime Minister out. Things are moving. That is what we want. We want structures in a country where, even if there's contentious politics going in place, the country does not come to a standstill. And I think the people of Sudan are trying as much not to destroy their country. They should carry on like that and not burn the whole place, and then we will have another Libya here.
Right.
And we don't want that.
And if history will really bear us down, matters of lessons from around the region, we can see what happened to Somalia. We had a dictator, and right now, when he was toppled, Somalia has never been Somalia again. This is the same that happened to Libya as well. You've mentioned that.
State collapse.
Muammar Gaddafi. Yeah. Is it good to have a bad leader, but who is a stabilizing figure for the country? Because he was, so to speak, a benevolent dictator. And of course, the media has spewed all this bad face of Muammar Gaddafi, but we never showcase also his good side as well.
The problem is the vacuum. If it leaves a vacuum of leadership, the problem is if you hoard power around yourself and you have to please a few people. We call it the selectorate theory. If you just please people, few people to keep you in power, the day you are out of power, there is a vacuum, then the state, that is what we call state collapse.
All right. Dr. Kisangani.
I think it's a better evil, but it's not the best option.
Yes.
I think it speaks to the need for African countries to build institutions. If you focus on building institutions, you can see what happens in, say, the Scandinavian, in, say, Finland. You go there, there's an election, there's a change, and no one notices because institutions are working, they're providing services to everyone. So I'm saying under the circumstances like the Libyan case, it is a better devil because at least it maintains a semblance of stability. But I'm saying there's a better option. We can do better than that.
Let's pick the brains of Dr. Hassan Khanenje.
It's not good to have a dictator who is a stabilizing factor in a country, but it is safer to have someone who is a stabilizing factor if the alternative is inconceivable. Now, in all practice of political governance, the trouble with most authoritarian regimes is they do not leave in place any structures institutionally that can actually allow for transition, because a lot of times they don't want to imagine a day when they're actually going to leave power. And that is one thing that whenever that happens, there's always a crisis, and most countries descend into conflict. Now, South Africa, the apartheid government had to negotiate its way out of power. Had that been violent, things would have been very different, and perhaps we should actually start learning to help some of these governments negotiate their way out of power, including if we have to give some of them immunities or guarantees so they can just go home. I think that's going to be a better way than asking for regime change, because that uncertainty makes people extremely recalcitrant to change.
Right. Briefly, could we also gravitate, as we're also planning to wind up and give our headline thoughts, Israel elections, what is happening right now? Is it neck and neck with Netanyahu and also with Benny Gantz as far as these elections are concerned? We've just read that everyone is claiming victory, and some also leading media stations in the country they're projecting, you know, a neck-and-neck sort of outcome out of this. But is Netanyahu also standing a chance in these elections, bearing the fact also there's an ominous cloud hanging over him of, you know, being embroiled in corruption as well? Will that also maybe be, a blot in his copybook, so to speak? Who hasn't spoken? Let's hear from, but we can actually just give briefly because very terse responses because of time.
The best thing for Israel right now will be for Bibi Netanyahu to exit the scene. He will become the longest-serving Israel prime minister. He has been controversial, and particularly the world is concerned about his relationship with Donald Trump, which is going to lead to grabbing the Golan Heights, fighting the Palestinian, provoking Iran, and perhaps Iraq will be in the middle, and creating a huge turmoil in the Middle East. The general who is coming in has fought and is a much more moderate voice. That's what Israel needs in order to get back to the nation state scene.
Dr. Mustafa.
Yeah, Dibal, I concur with Professor Midamba. I think it's time for Bibi Netanyahu to exit. He's been popular before. He's with the Likud party, but some of the policy decisions that he's overseen, including annexing more land in West Bank, the Golan Heights recently, with Trump recognizing that sovereignty, which is questionable under international law, has made him become much more unpopular. He's moved farther to the right. The Gantz, who is much more centrist, moderate, perhaps could be bring fresh air into particularly the resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. That will, if that is resolved, will bring in more peace in the region.
Right, Dr. Hassan Khaneja.
Well, we all agree that Netanyahu is actually bad for business with regard to the peace deal, peace process in the Middle East. When you look at the fundamental question of the right of return of Jerusalem, for instance, and of settlements in general, there are two positions that are actually identical, mostly. And what is sad is that right now the contest has been between the extreme right and the extremely right wing parts of the Israeli political discourse. And as much as we say Netanyahu he needs to exit, the challenge is, by all intents and purposes and based on the exit polls we are seeing, Netanyahu is likely to form the next government. Now, if he fails in the first round, because right now he's slightly ahead, if he fails in the first round, perhaps that is when the president is going to ask the second party to try and form the government, I think, within 28 days. But in all likelihood, it looks like Bibi Netanyahu may be coming back as prime minister, which again is bad for the peace process.
All right. Bad for the peace process. Right. Let's hear from Dr. Momo.
Yes. One thing is to take lessons, to learn that now that we are even talking about our own
excuse me,
post-handshake environment and building bridges, which is a good thing for our country in terms of harmony. We are talking about a country where structures are already in place, so that even if there is so much political disagreement about forming a government and so on, like now they're hitting a deadlock, numbers are neck to neck, they can always form a coalition government, and they always do that without a lot of any kind of problems. So they would never disagree on matters of elections to the point that they have to throw stones at each other, burn the country, and fight each other. So that is very important for us to understand, that they know there are limits to which they can go. That is good. But again, you have to look at the ideological issues. When you have Israel under threat at any one time, and you have Labour in power, you can be sure the next Prime Minister will be Likud, because Likud is more conservative, is more hawkish. Like what Professor Midamba and Dr. Mustafa are saying is that, you know, when you have now the other Labour, the other guy who is more, you know, dovish in terms of, Labour is dovish, Likud is hawkish in terms of how it goes. So it depends on mid-cycle and other variables around. For example, what is happening around Israel. But all the same, politics held constant. There are things that people and the rest of the world would wish that we can have a more peaceful, less volatile region.
Thank you.
And that needs better leadership in some of those places.
Right, thank you. Finally, let's hear from Dr. Kisiangani.
No, Edebal, I'm not an authority on Israeli politics.
Yes.
So perhaps I can just pass that opportunity.
You can pass that opportunity. But you can actually comment on the Canada politics as we're winding up. Will, you know, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau stand this particular, of course, firestorm that is blowing his way as far as the scandal is concerned?
Let me again leave that to my friend here.
Yeah?
He's a bit much more knowledgeable.
All right, okay.
Canadian.
I think
Briefly,
Trudeau
Dr.
will-
Kanenje, as we're winding up.
I think he will survive this. The opposition has been looking for a reason to dethrone this very, very popular prime minister. But when push comes to shove and now they have to present a candidate against him, I think people are going to look at the other candidate twice. He's been, I think, one of the most inclusive presidents. What Kenyans might not know, the man there in the video with the turban is a Sikh who is the India's, the defense minister of Canada, actually. And he's a Sikh in a turban. The immigration minister is a Somali. Migration and refugee issues. And so he's still very, very popular despite perhaps the drop in polls. I think when the time comes and people have to make a decision, they're still going to choose him in the meantime.
All right, thank you. We want to thank you for your participation this morning on this discussion that, of course, we've been looking at what is happening internationally as far as global affairs are concerned, also the state of security around the world, here in the country, and also just as a matter of security, I'm given to understand Kikomba also is on fire right now. We'll be giving you more details on this much later in the course of the program, but I'll be remiss also if I don't read one or two tweets that have been trickling our way. Let's see what Jacob Abere Salala is saying. How was figures arrived? Ordinarily, the measured tools were completely affected. Example, SMEs were closed, consumers declined in consumption, and even supply chain completely nosedived. So the statistics are ghost. This is in regard to what we were discussing earlier as far as the cost of living is concerned, and where we're actually casting aspersions on whether we should go full steam ahead and be using the GDP as opposed to other metrics or indices as far as measuring the economy, you know, how the economy is faring as well. We have Mastermind saying wrong. Let the little money that Wanjiku has be more valuable. Let 100 bob buy more things than just a kilo of sugar. This is the frustrations of the cost of living, the story that we did earlier. Danny Berry is saying that Kenya is a multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multicultural society that necessitates her people to live in harmony. Unfortunately, cohesion can't be achieved exclusively through legal settlements, but it seems that this value isn't a priority to some. This is Danny Berra. Also, Jacob has been active today. UN-backed Libyan administration needs to listen to ordinary citizens, sit down with stakeholders and move Libya forward. And also we have Rick Matthews saying absolutely the generals has no or weak commands to their troops. Of course, this is also just regarding what we were talking about South Sudan as well. Thank you for your valued company. You've been watching Standing on Guard, and I want to thank our panelists once more for this particular intensive discussion that we've been having. Thank you also for your valued company. My name is Debalane.
I told you to kick it more to the left. No, kick it higher. No, to the left. Come on, guys, stop it. Remember the win.
I'm Lucy, Jenny Bosco.
I'm Jenny Moses Kapembwa.
Majesty, I'm going to bag you a poster, Majesty. Good night.
I just feel bad.
How's Scarlett? Have y'all set that wedding date yet?
Not yet. But when we do, you'll be the first one to know.
I'm just feeling weak and dizzy.
You should go to the hospital.
I don't need a doctor.
Are you okay?
I'm okay.
Why did you wait so long to come to the hospital?
I didn't feel too sick.
I'm so sorry to tell you, but there are no therapies available.
Welcome to Katani Villas, located in a serene environment in Syokimau. We have an offer of 12.95 million shillings for a 4-bedroom townhouse with a servant's quarter master en suite with flexible payment terms.
Hey, this is Jeroge na niko hapa NTV na tunakwambia kila wakati watch and win with NTV, lakini leo ni siku ya kudhibitisha kitu ninakwambiaga ni ukweli.
Naitwa Roslyn Wairimu.
Roslyn Wairimu. Lovely. Roslyn Wairimu, ulikuwa umelala
kabisa,
usigizi fofofo?
Nikiota.
Halafu nikakwambia aje?
Niliwin trip.
Trip tu
ya kwenda Mombasa.
Na huendi na basi, na huendi ati na duthi, unaenda na nini? Waambie waamini ndio hawa.
Na bonfire.
Oh yes, bonfire. Na bonfire ukisikia pale kuna bonfire, nigatege shui. Hakuna mambo badili hapa lili. Unaenda na nani?
Na husband wangu.
Kabisa.
Ndio kumekuwa na watu wengi wanadanganyana.
Oh yes.
Lakini hii ni ukweli.
Ni ukweli.
Watu wamekuwa wameongea uongo, hata ukipigiwa simu hutaji kupokea.
Nikutuma tu na SMS 20686. Hapo unangoja kupigiwa simu.
Bas.
Na SMS ni bure.
NTV, turning on your world.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you woke up on the right side of the bed today. And in case you're feeling a little about today, then today's guests are going to get you wanting to get up out of bed, off your chair, and get to work. Because they are 3 individuals who are putting Kenya on the global map. My first guest is a gentleman whose story is going to inspire you. His name is Raphael.
Pleasure and a great honor to be on this particular show. Oh. It's actually a dream come true, you know, being on this show.
Really?
No, for real,
I'll
for
take
real, for
it. I'll take it.
No, I mean it actually, yeah.
Oh, bless, thank you. Raphael, your story is one of resilience and strength and overcoming and becoming. I know it's Michelle Obama's book, but I think in many ways, Raphael, your story is incredible. So can you tell us a little bit about your childhood? Because I want us to dive into that before we get to what you're doing today.
I was born and brought up in Korogosho. We call it Koch to make it sound cool. And Koch is one of the slums in Kenya. Actually, it's the 3rd largest slum in Kenya. We have Kibra, we have Mathare, and then we have Korogosho. And you know, I come from a family of 9. 5 brothers and 3 sisters. Amazing mom, amazing dad, very supportive family. But yes, we grew up in Korogosho, and like every other slum, poverty and poverty-related problems, you know, a lack of the basics, you know, in terms of food, in terms of shelter, in terms of clothing, the usual challenges of insecurity, drug abuse, and all these problems. So that's where I grew up. But then growing up, my dad always emphasized the issue of education, education, and education. And so my story is about, I mean, how education can be a ticket out of poverty. I remember we never used to say we come from Koch. We would always associate Koch with another neighborhood. You know, we would say, oh, I come from a place very close to Muthaiga, or very close to Dandora, or very close to Kariobangi South, very close to... Why? Because Koch was always synonymous with, you know, poverty, insecurity, crime, drug abuse, all negativity. And so growing up, we started thinking, how do we change this situation? And so there are a couple of initiatives that we founded, you know, Miss Korogosho, that supports now girls' education and girls' empowerment, supported quite a number of girls to go to school. People started appreciating Koch in that way. We started a radio station, we started various initiatives, and there are quite a number of them. And the younger generation now started picking up that and saying, okay, so Koch is not just about poverty, it's not just about crime, it's not just about insecurity. We can do something. So yeah, that's basically my story, and I've been like every other human being, evolving and trying to get a better version of myself, to get the best in life, to go for opportunities. Went to Dagoretti High School from Babadogo Primary. I was a top student there.
Yeah, actually, that's not even I want us to get into, because you talked about education being something that you really wanted to focus on, and you gave it your all. Yeah. Was that easy, though? Was it a conducive environment for you to be able to just focus on school and get those grades? Can you take me through that?
Certainly not. Yeah, I went to Babadogo Primary School, and my parents couldn't afford providing in terms of fees, but also in terms of the books that I needed. And so what I did at Babadogo Primary, I befriended in our class, one of our class teachers had a son in the same class.
Okay.
And so I could use those books. This Mr. Karaoke was an amazing teacher, actually. So you could, because we were always competing with his son.
Yeah, so it was you and him,
yes,
right?
Yes, fighting for that top slot.
Yeah.
And so as a way of encouraging us, he would invite us to his home so that I study with his son. Sometimes he would open up the office for us. Because I couldn't study at home, we grew up in a single sort of room in Koch, and
the nine of you.
The nine of us, and we, you know, where when guests come, then that turns into a guest sort of a sitting room. When there's anything going on, then you have to, you know, stop. It's the same place where everything was done. But most importantly, we used tin lamp. You know, that's what I used to study. We used to call it Karabai Nishken Tandike, so that if someone sneezes, you can't do your homework. You can do your homework. And so it wasn't very easy. But there's something about poverty.
Yeah.
Oh, that kind of challenge. It can make you helpless and hopeless. And you'll find many people who have succumbed to that in terms of self-pity, and they feel like, this is my situation, this is my destiny, and all that. So you'll find a lot of people quite a number of people who've gone that route. But then poverty or that kind of challenge can also take you to the second route, which is give you determination to say, I have to do better to get out of this situation. I have to do more. I have to put in more effort, more energy, more time, more whatever I have, I'm going to immerse myself. And so that's what I think I did, like a number of other people have also done, to say, look, this education is my ticket out of this situation. And so I immersed myself into that. And at Babadogo, I was a top student again in KCPE, and then in the division, I was called to Mangu High. My parents couldn't afford getting me to Mangu High, so I had to wait again. Then I got this opportunity at Dagoretti High School, which was fairly a cool school. Dago Ditches, as we called it, was a fantastic school. I think the many great things I learned was as a result of going to Dagoretti. I did my KCSE at Dagoretti, then I got a slot to study at University of Nairobi, where I did Bachelor of Commerce, finance option. I went back to my community Korogosho after graduation to try and also give back and give back, but also support my community, because I was supported by well-wishers I mean, well-wishers, and of course my parents contributed.
Were your parents still living?
Yes, they were still living in Korogosho even after I mean, throughout my academic life, my parents were always there. So after graduation, BCom, everyone wants to go to an auditing firm. It's the mark of accomplishment. So I said, I'm not gonna go to an auditing firm. I want to go to development field.
Okay.
So development sector. So I ended up in an organization which gave me an opportunity to go back to Korogosho to also work with that community. 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, I got this scholarship, the Ford Foundation scholarship.
How did they know about you?
No, it was always a very competitive scholarship because it's I mean, it's an amazing scholarship. It's one of those scholarships that if you got it, you go to any university in the world, provided you get admission, you take any course that you want, provided you get admitted, and they cater for all the expenses, including, you know, home visits. You know, you would have 10,000 people apply, but they would only pick 20. So I applied the first time, the second time, then the third time I got it. And Duke was always my university, my dream university. So I ended up at Duke University, where I did a master's in public policy. And yeah, then I came back home and to continue with the work that I'm doing, and also joined the United Nations, where I am now. Yeah.
Look at, like, I just like, he's so relaxed and casual and humble about it, but like listening to where you started off, this shouldn't be the story. If I was to like connect the dots, it shouldn't be that, it doesn't make any sense, and yet it makes all the sense in the world. So why is it important for you to keep going back to Korogosho and trying to like, you know, shift perceptions, bring people up? Like, why is it so important for you?
I mean, just to let people in that kind of, in Korogosho and in that kind of situation, that there are abundance of opportunities and possibilities in life, that Korogosho is not the world. The world is bigger than Korogosho, and that your situation today is not necessarily, I mean, not going to be your situation tomorrow, and that you can't succumb to self-pity. You can't succumb to this thing of just talking about challenges and luck. You should also see possibilities, and that half the story is that you are poor, but when the story is told, the fuller story is told, is that you can overcome all those challenges. So I go back to Korogosho and many other areas like Kibra, Madare, and other disadvantaged areas, to let people know that no, you can make it. Don't see yourself as inadequate in any way. Keep working hard. And I normally have this philosophy of 3 Ds, you know, dream. In whatever situation you are in, dream big, regardless of where you come from, where you were born, where you're raised. That doesn't matter. Dream. If you want to become a doctor, you can become a doctor. If you want to, we've had stories of people like Obama who had dreams of becoming something. Just a dream. It starts with the dream. Napoleon Hill says, if the mind can conceive it, you can achieve it. Start with that dream. And then determination. You don't achieve anything without putting in work, time. No successful person just finds themselves succeeding. You need to put in work every day, I mean, to get to your dream, because again, a dream is just that. If you dreamt that you're a millionaire
and then just left it at dreaming,
yeah, that will just be that. So dream, and then determination, but most importantly discipline as my 3D. That if you don't remain disciplined, then you don't go anywhere. I go back there and I always hear young people saying, no, now I've started this, now I'm also doing this, oh, this is what I'm trying to do, I want to be like this, I want to do this, what do you think? And so they start seeing possibilities. But if all of us succeed and we just keep it to ourselves, I mean, that is not success. We must hitch our wagon on something bigger than ourselves, you know, so that it is, you're moving with the masses, with the people. So, yeah.
What inspired you back then? What is it that you knew or understood that switched it for you? Because like you said, there's some people who see it as their fate. I'm always going to be in this condition. This is my fate. Let it be. So what was it that clicked for you?
I think a couple of things. One is, I mean, my parents. I think my parents amazing. Even in that situation, they were quite encouraging, you know.
And hard workers. Your dad used to walk like 10 kilometers every day.
He was a cook at the University of Nairobi.
Yeah.
But there's no single day that he was home saying that today I'm not feeling well or anything. He was going to work every day. And I could visit him sometime at work. Whenever I was chased for school fees, I would first land at the university where I used to work, and I would see where he was working. He was working in the butchery at University of Nairobi, very cold place. So I could tell this old man truly is working hard. My mom, I know there are days he could stay up late because she was a casual laborer at one of the factories in the neighboring estate, Babadogo, and she could stay up late, sometimes cooking chapati to go and sell at work, which is illegal. But later on, if you do the math, the most she got from that kind of stress and the work that she was doing in terms of the profit was about 50 to 80 shillings, but she could stay up late just to do that. So when you see that kind of thing, that positive example inspires you to want to do more.
So before I end, I just want to read out a couple of your accolades. I don't even think I can make it through all of it, but like just to give you an idea of the kind of man who's sitting next to me right now. In 2019, he was named one of the 100 most influential young Kenyans. He also got that in 2018 as under Influential Young Africans. He's a recipient of the Diversity and Inclusion Outstanding Leaders Award, 2018 Leader of the Year Award. I mean, 2016 he was named one of the UN Persons of the Year, received a I actually cannot get through all of this, but he's an incredible young man. And what's so striking, I'm not sure if I should call you young man, I'm not sure if that's rude or not, but he's
everyone wants to be referred to as a young man, so that's good. Yeah.
But I mean, what's striking besides all of this, because I knew all of this before sitting next to you, like it's so humble about it too, but very focused about what it is you want to achieve, and that success has to be shared. You are, I mean, thank you for being you and for being so true to yourself and for always striving to be better. Because just by you being you, I even want to do, I'm like, come on, Sharon, wake up, come on. Yeah. If I was feeling like, oh God, it's a long day, there needs to be more.
Yeah, I think there's no place for self-pity in this world. I think it's just about doing your best, trying to get the better version of yourself every day. And like I say, the world has immense potential and possibilities. Yeah. And so if you keep putting in work, if you keep doing your best, if you remain focused, I think there's nothing that you can't achieve, because all these other people that we see, they're human beings.
Do you have any vices? Like what's your vice? Because now I'm like, what a catch too. Ladies, are you single? No. We might put it up on our Insta stories to see. Check us out on Insta stories, and we can see if he's single or not, and we can get into his vices. Thank you so much, Raphael.
Thank you so much. It's an honor and a pleasure. And like I say, this is a dream come true for me, and keep doing the good work. And this is an amazing show. And yeah, so proud of you and so proud to be here. Keep up the good work.
Raphael, you're so... Thanks, guys. Let's go on a break, but be right back, okay, in a few minutes. We've got more people lined up who are going to inspire you like Raphael just did. We'll be back in a moment. Incredibly. My next guest is a vision. She's a visionary too. She is Muthoni Drummer Queen. She's a recording artist, founder and creative director of what I think to be the most iconic festivals in Kenya. I'd even say East Africa. Most iconic. She, I think, started this and got it going, and next thing you know, there's a couple more festivals happening. She started Blankets and Wine and Africa Nouveau. Muthoni.
Hi.
Hi. Do you just look so cool? I feel like I should have had sunglasses and my hair done. You're just like a cool person. Were you always a cool person?
I wasn't always a cool person. I think I was always interesting. I've always enjoyed my own ideas and my own company and thinking about things and creating and producing things. But then I guess you, like everybody, you go through that phase like in teenagehood where you're not quite fitting in. I didn't quite fit in with whatever was, you know, sort of conventionally cool or acceptable. I wasn't really interested in those ideas, so I didn't really fit in. So I guess I had a bunch of years there trying to figure out who am I, should I reduce myself, how do I convince people? And I guess then you spend a lot of energy trying to fix something that isn't even broken, right?
Right.
So I'm grateful for music, because when I started to write my music and to defend my ideas and to really, you know, to really manifest the thoughts, that gave me my safe place, I guess, and I could come into myself more. Then I stopped negotiating with myself about who I am. So, and this is the result.
Look, like even just the way you express yourself is art. It's like, are we taking notes? Someone,
No,
can you just like write that down,
on.
create like, that's a
Dude.
song in itself.
Yeah,
thought
I studied
maybe.
economics for like 6 weeks.
For 6 weeks, ladies
and
and
then,
gentlemen.
yeah, and then it wasn't on. I realized, to be honest, I realized I was in class to prove to myself that I was smart, and to have something. When you say it to adults, when I said, I'm studying economics and political science, they were like, oh, that's good.
Yeah.
But I didn't care about that. I didn't want to make economic policy. I'm interested in a lot of things. I could learn basically anything, and just didn't feel right. So then, perfectly timed, the university lecturers went on strike. The police threw us out of Nairobi University. So the same day, I had applied for a job at the Africa Youth Parliament. So then I got this internship, and I didn't need to go back to school. 6 months later, I joined USIU, and then I studied political philosophy and international relations, and I really, really loved that experience.
Okay.
I was quite happy.
Okay.
So it was around when I joined USIU that I also decided to do something about my music career. A friend and I were singing from our high school days, and then we decided to put together a variety show kind, like our own concert. We'd sing our own music and sing some songs from other people. We convinced all our friends who played instruments to be our band.
Yeah.
And all our friends who are dancing to be like our dancers and singers. It was a really good show.
Yeah.
And then we had it for 3 days at our old school at St. Mary's. And I think the process of putting together that show and composing and teaching a band and then, you know, the school gave us a venue.
Yeah.
But then we didn't know that you had to do everything else, right? Like you have to wash the venue, you have to find the tissue for the toilet, you have to like... So the logistics of an event and also composition and presentation of a showcase, I think that experience is what like flipped it for me, and I was like, yeah, I really do want to have a career in music, and I really do want to be able to produce my own experiences.
Yeah, and festivals, I guess.
Correct.
Also.
So I think everything we've ever done, I learned in that in that weekend.
Yeah.
And then it's just kind of like amplifying and getting smarter and getting, you know, but doing it for real.
Right.
And also it just built a trust in myself. We had a full house every night for 3 nights. I mean, of course, all our friends had been threatened to come.
Like you better come.
And you better bring a friend.
Yeah. And if you're not there, you better be on stage dancing.
But even to watch them, people who knew us, like being wowed by us, I guess there was a thing for like, there is something really here. Then now we had money to go recording, right? And we were so psyched. But the thing we found when we walked around is a lot of the producers then just said we weren't Kenyan enough, and they wouldn't record us.
What does that mean?
That means that we didn't speak enough Sheng, and our songs were not about partying, and we were not necessarily doing kapuka. So they said that Kenyans are not interested in listening to Kenyans who sound like us. And I think that's really when something shifted for me. Being excluded from this idea of Kenya, this Kenyan narrative, that Kenya is only for some people and not for some other people, and that there are people who decide what Kenya is for, the gatekeepers. That was my first true experience with that. And because then they wouldn't let us record, we could only exist live.
Okay.
And then so doing live at some point was like, okay, this tiny little gig that we are doing, it's not really growing. It had like, you know, the venue and the timing, it couldn't work. It had kind of achieved its maximum potential.
Okay. Yeah.
And we were having problems with the venue.
Yeah.
So then the question was, do you find a new venue?
Yeah.
Or do you just find like a whole new approach?
Now a businesswoman.
Yeah.
You're a mogul. You're starting.
I don't know
things
about a mogul.
No. I mean, MDQ. You're being very humble right now, and it's okay. You can do that. We met about a week ago at a friend's house, and we were talking about we were talking about other things. And one of the things you said that struck me was that I don't think I'm identified as this like sexual symbol. I think the kind of energy I put out is boss.
Yeah.
And that's how you walk up to me. And I was like, God damn, I really need to like, what is the energy that I'm putting out? And it better be like boss queen. I mean, where does that come from? This like fierceness, this like very centered, grounded, understanding of who you are and the bossness.
Yeah. So a lot of that came from fighting for myself for a lot of years, right? So at the beginning, I had so many no's. I mean, I'm not special. All artists, anybody who's starting something is going to hear 10 no's for 1 year.
Yeah.
So, but I had to fight so hard at home. I had to fight with my mom for her to accept this decision of me wanting to pursue a music career. And you can understand, I guess, as a parent, when there's no template, there's nobody that she knew who has ever succeeded. What does this actually mean? The norms of the society, you're a woman, this music, you come from like a Catholic background, like the whole thing. So I really had to fight for my existence at home. And then when I would go out into the spaces where I should be, you know, invited in the studio heads, and we really did walk this Nairobi. There weren't as many studios as now, granted, but we really did walk around. And just hearing this story over and over, you're not Kenyan enough, you need to dumb this down, you need to do something that Kenyans will understand. This repeated narrative, and I just didn't buy it. I just don't believe that, you know, Kenyans are this sack of potatoes that everybody makes us out to be, you know, that we only like linear ideas, or Kenyans only like these 5 things. These same people who then told you, no, one day eventually come to something that you have, or one day you cut a check for an artist in their label, and then it's like, okay, so maybe we had misunderstood this thing.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine how good that must have felt.
So good.
So you are obviously, for you, it's not just about music, it's not just about art, it's not just about a festival. There seems to be something bigger. There needs to be a bigger conversation. Even in your music, there's like conscious conversation.
Absolutely.
Even the way you dress and look, it's almost like you're not going to put me in a box.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So why is that important to you, to have the conscious conversations even in your art?
I'd say that even as a kid, I was always interested in ideas, right? I was the kid who would be hanging around the adults and listening to them talking about at the break of multi-party politics, and just like listening to the dynamic that is Kenya. I was always really curious about big ideas. Why is the sky blue? Explain to me, tell me things. And then I think maybe in my late teens, around early 20s, I found Neo Soul, right? So I found Jules Scott and Common and Erykah Badu, and I found all these people who are so cool, but would say real things in their music about their society, about their feelings, their experiences. So then for me, it always seemed correct to speak truth, to power. And I was always confused why people felt like they couldn't speak truth to power.
These are her words, by the way. Freedom is the core of my existence, and indeed any work platform, any and indeed of any work or platform I create. I'll say that again. Freedom is the core of my existence and indeed of any work, platform I create.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're saying, that you were confused about like people who weren't really able to express themselves and be themselves. And,
completely.
And so even in your art, it had to...
It had to be. Maybe it's also, I'm just thinking about it now, but you know, I'm a middle-born. So middle-born children tend to have to fight for their identity because then there's this expectation with the firstborn, and then there's like kind of the love that is for the baby, and the middle ones are. And I remember saying to my parents when they'd say, "Why can't you be like, you know, my sister Wajiko?" And I'm like, "I'm not Wajiko."
Yeah.
You know, from very early, it's just like I am who I am. And then, you know, the system keeps, you know, so then freedom became really important for me. The freedom to express myself, the freedom to have my own ideas, the freedom to put things out. And because I think it's cool, right? Everything goes into the conversation and makes things better. So when I would find people who impose limitation, I felt the need to be free for me, but also to be free for them. Because I think a lot of times people impose limitation because they just think it's not possible or available. They've just bought into this idea of what is there is all that there can be.
Yeah.
So I feel the burden for freedom for myself, but also for the people who would look to put me in chains, right?
Because in seeing you be and act so free,
they
feel like they have the permission to be free themselves.
Absolutely.
So you just made an announcement on your Instagram. In fact, you're going to be traveling shortly for this.
Yes.
It has something to do with TED.
It has something to do with TED.
You're just, fellow, no big deal. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah.
Like what it is you're doing with TEDx? And
so TED, so I think TED is incredible. The first time I went onto the platform, and you know, ideas worth sharing, ideas that can ignite the world, that can remind people of their dopeness, of higher purpose, of the incredible human potential. So I thought that it was incredible. And I like to talk, I like words. I was like, I know things. It would be dope to be on a platform, on a global platform, to share some ideas. And then my friend, Blinky, did it, and then Wanori did it. And when Wanori did it, it was just like, it was such a profound experience, being at TED, being around the people at TED, because it's a really curated space, right?
Right, because it's 20 people.
Yeah, it's 20,
leaders, change makers,
absolutely.
And you get to give a talk.
And I really want to be in that space with thought leaders. It's how I think of myself. And, you know, I want to be in a space where people really enjoy ideas. And then, you know, the network, a global network of people who can back your idea. So then I put it out into the universe. You can't apply to get into TED. TED, you have to be nominated to be in TED, and then you apply.
Wow.
And then they have to check your references, and then if you check out, then you get in.
Yeah.
So even when they sent it, like, okay, you know, I was like, it's still such a long shot. It's a global platform. It's TED, the real TED.
It's TED. Like the thing that you watch to like motivate you, and you're like, what should I know about the power of manifestation? You go to YouTube and you Google like a TED Talk video.
Yeah.
So I know as we wrap up, I know you've also got a summer tour coming up. You're like just, I don't know, 10 countries. How many countries are you going to again?
So now we have 6.
6 countries.
Yeah.
Where are you going?
So France, Belgium, Netherlands, the UK, Canada, and I'm forgetting the other one. Switzerland, maybe? Switzerland,
okay.
So 6 countries.
Snap. Oh gosh. Just like a TED Talk, a summer tour here. What are you doing with your life? How are you putting Kenya on the
No, Sharon, but I have to say, you know, like it's been hard and it's been a long time coming. And I really have to say this. I don't know that any of this would have been possible or available for me if I had been allowed into this space, right? If I had been, I don't know, Anya Shinsky or Akali, who, you know, the space was open for. It's like, yes, you're Kenya, you belong here. Because I didn't belong here, I had to find a way to exist, right? And then now my way to exist allows me to be in multiple spaces. But until the day comes, I'm going to be out here.
You're just going to be like summer tours in Europe. What are you doing? Wow, thank you, Muthoni. And also that you did not dull your light, no matter how many times people are like, "Aye, it's too left. You need to just come back here. This is what we know." Yeah. Because you know what they say, like you cannot dull your light so that someone else can start to feel comfortable with who you are. Because ultimately it just shows they're not comfortable with who they are. Yeah. So thank you for being free, for being fabulous, for being a boss. Okay, we've got to take a break. We'll be right back in a moment. Raphael Aj. She is, get this, the Vice President and co-founder at Digital Grassroots and is the lead coordinator for the East Africa Youth Internet Governance Forum. She also literally just stepped out of a cat that she just had at KS. I mean, I don't know how you came from an exam, but straight to here. But you see the kind of people we're like talking to today. Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, a bit flustered.
For the exam, how was the exam? How was the exam?
It was okay, but it was random, but they do that to us all the time.
And you can't just be like, excuse me, sir, ma'am, I'm Vice President over here, about to go on an interview. But no, the hustle continues, huh?
Our lecturers don't care. They're like top judges. They're like, what do you mean?
Keep going. So tell me a little bit about yourself, Raphael. Tell me about your childhood. How would you describe it?
I would say it was really fun. I was a tomboy and I used to love working with my dad. When I was young, he used to take me to the office and I really liked that.
When did you start to feel inside of you that there was something stirring, that you were not designed to be mediocre, but that the stars and the moon and the sky, that's where you were going?
It didn't even start the way other people feel like, oh yeah, I need to change things like that. It just started in high school where, Kenyan high school, I was labeled a bad seed because I would question things we had silly rules like no staring, blah, blah, blah. So I became an activist when I was in high school, and it started from there. So then after high school, I formed an organization with a bunch of people, started becoming human rights activists.
Wait, an organization for what?
It's for human rights advocacy for students.
What?
Yeah.
For that same high school, or in general for
in general.
Right. So what exactly would you be advocating for?
Women rights, safety online, which is also what we do with Digital Grassroots.
Yeah.
It's online safety and technology policy. Yeah. In Kenya, you've been hearing of the data protection laws. You don't know what they are. So we get involved in writing them and in questioning the government when they have a very off rule, the current data protection. We attend those public hearings and we bring memoranda and we're like, no, we don't agree with this clause, we don't agree with this clause.
Yeah.
And they listen.
Yeah, and so did you know that law or policy making would be something that you'd want to get into?
Yes. Yeah, okay, I didn't know that I wanted to go to law school. In another life, I would have been probably a programmer.
Okay.
But I went to law school, and from then when I was, I think in second year, I got so engrossed in the technology world, and I applied for some conferences and I got in. So they were like, come represent Kenya, we think you have something to say. And that's when I started traveling. And that's how we formed Digital Grassroots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about Digital Grassroots?
Oh yeah, it's a really interesting story.
Yeah.
Our first meeting was on the floors of Geneva. We are all from different countries.
Okay.
Because we're 11. Everyone is from a different country, like Zambia, USA, Albania, Tanzania. We're from 11 countries, or Nigeria and some others. Yeah. And everyone was chosen from their country, so we were the best from our country at that conference.
Yeah.
That time it was about internet governance. Internet governance is, in short words, it's governing the internet, making laws and policies that govern the internet. Yeah. So then we started that, and it was really cool. We all really enjoyed it, and we went from there. Yeah.
So why is the internet? I mean, I can even see your phone is by your hand. Are you one of those who's real quick, whip out your phone at any moment? You need to why the internet? Why is that a fascinating point of even the work that you're doing? Yeah. Why is it an important part?
Oh yeah, the reason it's important to me is that these days everything is online, and so I started out as a human rights activist, and we all know that these days you have rights offline that you don't have online, like privacy, freedom of expression. So we were just we need to take that offline and also put it in the online space, make the online space safe for everyone, and also development and innovation, using the internet. And we've created jobs using digital grassroots, so also employment, and plus we all like having startups these days. So.
That's true. You can't, like if you're not 16 and you're not on your third startup, it's so interesting how like that's now the thing, whereas before it wasn't quite the thing. Or it was seen as like no, you need the security of like a 9 to 5. But it's so interesting. Do you mind me asking how old you are?
Yeah, I'm 23.
Just casually 23 and just starting, creating startups, creating job opportunities for people, trying to change policies around the internet. And I feel the internet now is something that we can't run away from. No matter what you do, you are going to have an online presence in one way or another. Even if you decided, I don't want to have social media, you're probably going to have an Uber account. You're probably going to have an email account. You just don't know how private it actually is. So I think we all need to be a little bit more aware.
You need to know. You know, people ask me, do you actually, since you tell us that you are really serious on your privacy, do you read terms and conditions? And I'm like,
Do you actually read like the terms? So when like
I do.
When there's an app, because I see you have an iPhone there. When Apple updates its terms and conditions, you're there like, excuse me, sir.
Privacy policy.
where this we have a problem with. That's so interesting. What is your vision? What do you want to see for a lot of the startups that you're starting, and even just for yourself? What would you like to do?
Well, now I'm in Kenya School of Law, so it's pretty obvious I'll go into litigation. So, but what I want is for the internet to be open and less regulated. We're really trying to regulate in Kenya. We have all kinds of laws, like we had the computer misuse law, which was in the High Court, and we complained so much about it, we made so much noise. And
can you detail what was in that?
The computer misuse law. So basically they were trying to say, so one of the laws is that if you speak ill of a government official, the president or whatever, online, it's punishable by a certain number of years in prison or certain fines. So they were just basically trying to limit the freedom of expression online, which we already, have it in our constitution, like it's granted, and it's like one of the fundamental rights. So what I want is that we don't have kinds of laws that limit, because they even inhibit the growth of the internet, and so I want us to have that. I hope digital grassroots really grows to, influence policy all over and continue influencing policy, and also continue creating jobs, create more woke youth in our countries, because we work like at the grassroots with like communities.
Right. Yeah. You were also recently named a Google Policy Fellow.
This year I was the fellow in Eastern and Southern Africa, so they just get one. And
wow.
So I was doing that project in those countries. So so I know a lot about like the internet in all countries. Like Rwanda banned cartoons.
What?
Of presidents. You can't draw a cartoon of the president and say stuff about them. Like and you can't share them online. Like there's many digital rights abuses happening. So that was just what the project was about.
Okay. So what would you want the youth to know about the internet as well? Because I understand you're taking on the policy end of things, and just like trying to change some of the regulations that are quite stringent. But from your experience on the other end, I mean, there's a lot of young people going online, saying whatever, doing whatever, putting up whatever. What kind of advice would you have, for the younger people who are coming online?
We try at Digital Grassroots, because we work with people between 14 and 29 years. We try to make them aware of how they're supposed to behave online. We have a course, and even last year I organized this conference in Kenya for just youth. It was called the Kenya Youth Convening on Internet Governance, to just tell them about how to get online, what you do when you get there, what are the rights you have when you're there, and when the rights you have might also infringe on someone else's rights, because my rights end where yours begins. So so like we just started doing that, and it was really successful. We want to do another one this year. So
wow. Is this normal? Is this like, does your crew just like organize conferences, start these like digital grassroots organizations with like people from different countries? Like, is it you and your friends who are like this? Because I'm just thinking, like, at 22, 23, my biggest concern was like, oh gosh, I have another. Okay, so some level.
Yeah.
Those are the problems too.
Yeah, but like, I'm so lucky. My friends are also like really ambitious. We are all like, oh my God, what are we doing with our lives? Like, we need to figure it out by this. Yeah. I don't know, I guess you never get satisfied until you're where you really want to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do your parents think and say about what it is that you're doing with like all these foundations that you're coming up, organizations, conferences? What do they say?
Oh, my mom told me so many congratulations. She was like, I'm tired. Like,
no,
what
like,
more will I congratulate you about?
Yeah, she's just, you know,
like
president
it's
now.
her thing.
It's like she's just born to be glorious.
Yeah.
Wow.
But like, I don't, like most of the times they don't even understand like what I'm doing. I just tell them, oh yeah, I'm going to France. They're like, okay, have fun. So like, they don't even know what I'm doing. I just have to tell them it's because I can't even explain like.
It's hard to like get into the swing of things.
Yeah.
Wow. So how are you able to, do you find that you're able to balance school and the you know, tasks and responsibilities that await you there and all these other things that you're trying to change and regulate when it comes to internet policy?
Fortunately, when I went to undergrad, I was at the University of Nairobi, and we all know we have a history of strikes, so I had a lot of time on my hands.
So funny, MDQ said something about that too previously. Yeah, okay.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, she was like, because of a strike.
Yeah.
I then decided to just start the festival. Yeah, so I'm like, okay, there's always good in something, in a
there was
setback.
a
There's
good
like
in
a
it.
good in it.
Yeah, actually that's why I started having a lot of time. In second year, we had a strike for about 4 months, and I was going mad. Like, wow. I didn't know what I would do. I was always agitated. I'm like, what do I do?
Oh gosh.
And I hated working for law firms.
Okay.
So
you just casually, you know, started Digital Grassroots, and you become the lead coordinator of East Africa Youth Internet Governance Forum. What are you guys doing? What are you guys doing? Wow, this is incredible. Thank you so much, Muthoni, and thank you for shining the torch bright and lending your voice and time and energy to changing something that a lot of us take for granted, right? Because we just see like internet policy. What do you know? Can I just tweet whatever? So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, man. If this show didn't get you feeling spurred to start your day on the right, doesn't make you want to grab that thing that you've been scared to go for, then I don't know what will, okay? See you guys tomorrow, 8 a.m. sharp. Bye, everybody.